if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything. And so I keep my mouth shut about it.
Hello, brother.
Bill.
The monkey that likes killing our family. It's back.
Stephen, for you, this is obviously the latest in a very long line of adaptations of your work, and I'm curious to know whether or not your relationship to adaptations of your writing has changed over the years and where it stands now.
My idea is, let's see what people do with it. Nobody sets out to make a bad movie. They don't spend all that time and effort trying to do a collaboration, a collaborative effort, and turn out with something that's awful. So I'm always interested in what smart people do with an idea of mine, and I don't insist on it being one-to-one, that the story or the book should be adapted exactly the way that I wrote it. That wouldn't be any fun for anybody, really, including me. For me, it's like sending a kid off to college. You hope that they're going to do well. You hope that they're not going to get into trouble with dope or booze or car accidents or women or anything like that. You just hope that everything is going to turn out really well. Sometimes it does, and I always say that when it does. If it doesn't turn out the way that I would like, I remember my mother saying, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything. And so I keep my mouth shut about it, but it's interesting to see what people do. Oz is a very talented filmmaker, and this is a very talented film. Longlegs was a talented film. It's a different kind of film, but they still stay in that field of sort of suspense. And that's great. That's the way I work too. Anything can be interesting if you really put in the suspense, and he did that.
Oh, that's odd. I don't remember locking this.
You wouldn't happen to remember if my aunt had a wind-up toy monkey at the yard sale?
Oh, not a cherished childhood memory now, was it?
No!
Oz and James, for you two, I'm so interested to know what your first experience with Stephen's writing was. Do you have like a core Stephen King memory that you can think back to in your life?
Yeah, my dad was a real avid paperback reader. He didn't watch television. He was sort of a certain generation and like a really well-trained theater actor and a musical theater actor and a movie star, really knew how to do the thing. And so TV, funnily enough, just like wasn't really a thing in my house, but paperback books were. And I'll truly never forget standing in my house in Wellfleet in Cape Cod and holding my dad's copy of the paperback for Pet Sematary with the cat's face and the misspelled title in the kid's scrawl. And I was too young to read it. I was like, this is a big book. I don't know how to do that. But the image struck me and resonated with me. I could see the whole thing. Like I understood the intention. And I know that it's sort of weird to say that about a cover and not the text itself. But there was something about, there's a delight to this that I can tell is special. There's a playfulness to this that I can tell is special. The misspelling of the title really just like tripped me out, and it really sparked something in my mind. And then my first experience reading King was Misery, where it came out one summer, I think, when we were on Cape Cod, and it was the first book that my dad and I read sort of coincidentally. So he would read a chapter, then I would read a chapter, and he would read a chapter, and I would read the chapter, and we'd sort of pass it back and forth. And that made me feel like a big dude, right? All of a sudden, I'm reading the same books as my dad is. And the first book to do that was Misery. And again, Misery has the same playful energy, and the picture's so good. The Rob Reiner movie is so great. because it has that element of joy. The characters aren't in joy, but we enjoy the situation that they're in and the way that they're moving through it. And Kathy Bates's thing was so indelible at the time because it was so fun. It was such a light touch. I mean, Kathy Bates's thing in that is just as good and just as important as Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. It's not that different when you look at how they sort of applied a characterization to the villain that made them sort of lovable. I mean, what a wild notion, right? That's the great thing about Hannibal Lecter is we like this guy. Yeah. From the minute we see him in his tailored jumpsuit, which Hopkins insisted, he was like, the first thing I knew about that part was that the suit was tailored. And he's the only guy in cell block, whatever, whose suit fits. And you remember seeing Anthony Hopkins for the first time in that picture and just being like, I like this guy. Like he's put together. He's something special about him. And similarly, Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes, you could see that she loved her villain. I love it when an actor loves their villain. Nicolas Cage, I got super duper crazy ass lucky that he loved Longlegs as much as he did, and there's so much joy in that part.
We all got lucky with that one. He's incredible in that film.
Yeah.
James, how about for you? Do you have a sort of core Stephen King memory?
I would say probably for me, it would be, because I just such a horror nerd growing up, horror movie nerd, I should say. So most of the stuff that I got used to of Stephen's early on were the movies. But the first book or the first story I read of Stephen was The Mist, and loved that tremendously. I just loved the mystery, like just this supernatural sort of mystery that slowly unfolds in such a sort of like a simple setup. And that's what I've always appreciated. Mr. King's story is just awesome setup that just slowly reveals, that slowly teases the audience as to what's to come. And a lot of times if things are not explained or kind of doled out to you, it makes you want to know it even more. It makes you lean into the story even more. And I really appreciate that. And that's also partially too that I really like about what he did with the monkey is by not giving it a mythology, you make this thing even scarier. Evil doesn't necessarily have a origin, so to speak, unless you go deep into the Bible. But it's that unknown that gives it that makes it really kind of like terrifying for me. Those are my memories of when I look back at Stephen's stuff early on in my life.
You got any advice?
I think that the most important thing for you to remember is try not to kill everybody around you.
What do you think it is about that writing that gets people from such an early age?
Mr. King's writing is James is right to say the lean in ability of it, the way that the chapters are constructed, dropped into the flow of the narrative is the anticipation of this thing that's either happened or is going to happen or is going to happen again. And there's like this shadow, this shade that sort of haunts the chapters and haunts the pages, where he'll sort of suggest, oh, this thing that's out there, or this thing that's sort of festering at the edges. And some people know what it is and some people don't know what it is. Some people have experienced it, some people haven't experienced it. But we know that there's like this thing, this other, that's alive in these pages and is just sort of waiting to come and get you. It's magical. It really is. And I find that to be true every time. Like I recently read Dead Zone and I was like, whoa. There's a thing that and Pet Sematary, that's one of the grisliest books. Yep. Man, that's one of the grisliest books ever written. And as a parent, you read that book, it's like, this is gnarly. Like this is brutal. This is so brutal. Like, what are you gonna do? Of course you got to go bury the kid. I mean, it's a rock in a hard place. It's not gonna work out, but you got to do it. But anyway, the flow of the sort of breadcrumbs is rote term, but there's a quality of dropping in these sort of fizzy balls of like anticipation and dread, and there's like a thing around the corner and you'll see, and it's in the pages already even though it's not there yet. So gratifying, so wonderful. Thank you, sir, for all of your things.
Thanks. I mean, just to, you're all calling me Mr. King, and I just think of myself as Steve, and I feel like fucking Mr. Chips, in a way. I do what I do, and I think that for me, the important thing is to love all the characters as much as possible. I even felt a certain amount of sympathy for Annie Wilkes after a while, and I think that works if you get invested with the characters. It works really well, and in a movie like this is not a cartoon movie in the sense that you do care about the people involved. There's that sense of caring and a kind of depth. And I couldn't agree more about the mythology question. The thing about supernatural fiction is that it should come out of nowhere and just hit you, wham, in the head. And it doesn't necessarily need a big, long explanation. Now, there are producers, James Wan is not one, that sort of insist on a background. They want to know why this happened. Well, why did cancer happen? Why did a heart attack happen? Why did some kid get killed in the road like Gage Creed does in Pet Sematary? Because sometimes happens and everybody dies. Boom, there you go.
Everybody dies. And that's life. I'll die. And you will both die. And all of your friends and their parents and all of their pets and everybody.
That concludes our conversation today. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us.
I want to say that I just love this movie. Oz, you're a great guy. James, you're a great guy. You've done a lot of good stuff and a lot of good stuff ahead of you. So thank you very much. It's a real pleasure and an honor.